All right. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you for being willing to let me sit down in your home and at your table and answer some questions directly with you.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome.
What would you like to know?
I have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Please.
I will ask them here, and just your response would be grateful. The filibuster in Congress, how do you feel about it? Would you want to keep it or dissolve it?
So the filibuster, as you know, is a procedural maneuver in the Senate that ensures that basically every single vote that goes to the Senate requires 60 votes. That is not the chamber I'm running for, but at the same time, I do believe that ensuring that the filibuster creates consensus and compromise. In my personal opinion, the mark of good governance is really when all sides are a little bit disappointed with the outcome, and when all sides are required to come together in order to make good policy. So even as a general point, I'm comfortable with the filibuster, and I'm comfortable with requiring coalitions and more people to come together and to the table in order to push legislation through.
Right, okay. Do you have an idea or consideration for a solution for Social Security, and so it won't dissolve in like they're projecting in 32?
Yes, so we know that at most, your number puts us around 6 years to insolvency. We know that at most, under current funding levels and current participation levels, that we have at 8 years. Though 32 absolutely, it could even be sooner than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting right there. So the first thing I'll say is that I absolutely support Social Security, and I do not support continuing to kick the can down the road until we see automatic 20% across the board slashes to Social Security payments to all Americans who are currently receiving it, because that means that Congress lack of doing its job will punish the most vulnerable Americans among us. And as a first point, I'd like to see Congress do its job and fix this problem. As a second point, I believe that we should immediately lift the FICA cap. So I believe it's $168,200 per year, or $162,800 per year. I sometimes flip the numbers in my head, but regardless, the way it works is we pay approximately 7%. But only on that first $160-something thousand per year. And anything that you earn in excess of that is exempt from contributing into the Social Security Trust Fund. So that means that our fellow Americans who are making $400,000, $1 million, $2 million, whatever it may be per year, they still max out at the same $160,000-ish. And people like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, they tend to pay their entire FICA amount within the first 24 hours of every year, while the rest of Americans, more than 50% of Americans, in fact, are paying on every single paycheck and every single dollar that they earn throughout the year. So the very first thing that we can do, and we know from actuarial studies that eliminating the FICA cap will immediately buy 75 years of solvency for the Social Security Trust Fund. And so that will give us the rest of my lifetime to then do anything else to continue to better that system, and that would be overnight.
All right, that sounds good. Which brings me to the Medicare, Medicaid problem. Would you have a problem with health care for all?
No, I sure would not.
Okay.
So I believe that healthcare should be a basic human right. And let's talk about what I mean here. So I believe that an annual physical and health checkup, annual mammogram once you get to that point, annual colonoscopy once you get to that point, an annual eye exam, a twice annual teeth cleaning. Yeah. I forgot what we call the audio screening off the top of my head. But spending what little money it takes to screen every American for these, would have vast savings for the country as a whole. Because one thing that we're experiencing right now, without even getting into my particular policy yet, is that for too many Americans, the emergency room is their primary care physician. That is where they go when something happens. In addition to that, we just gutted almost $1 trillion from Medicare and Medicaid. Congress allowed the premium tax credits for Affordable Care Act plans and marketplace plans to expire. Did not renew their marketplace plan. So off the bat, 5% of Americans just this year in 2026 do not have health insurance who did last year.
Very
and
detrimental.
That's absolutely, to say it mildly.
Yes.
And that's in addition to those who already did not have it, and those premiums are going to go up again unless Congress does something on January 1st of 2027. And so more are going to lose coverage. We know that at least 26 hospitals across Oklahoma are at immediate risk of closing. All that to say, I believe in Medicare for all. And I just want those preventative and basic life-saving measures that we already talked about, because those will save us money by catching things before they become major issues that cost a lot more money down the road. First. Second, it will avoid emergency room visits to go take care of these things where we then catch something that has already progressed far too far. And the third thing that I think about a lot is I would love to see every American have a primary care physician and do those annual checkups and well exams, etc. But even if we cannot get around that as a good policy for Americans, then fine. At least let's include urgent care in the same sort of planning that we talk about hospitals, because that will still be far cheaper than emergency rooms when the urgent care is able to solve the problem.
Right. Good. Okay, here's a kind of a hefty question. With all the money that has been appropriated, we'll put it that way, and that's the soft way of saying it, by this administration, is there would you have a plan or proposal to kind of recover some of that money?
Can you clarify to which funds you refer?
Let's say the money that has been cut by Doge to save, the spending, but that money has gone somewhere, not necessarily back into the budget or the United States Treasury or anywhere else.
Yes.
And that's obviously clear because it's been stated over and over that billionaires are getting richer. There's a lot of billionaires. There's a lot of money that is going across the board from the government to somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, is that a proposal? I shouldn't say proposal. Is there a plan, I guess, that you could propose to your associates in Congress that they would agree with?
Sure. I don't have, based on where I think this line of questioning is going, I'll say I don't have the solution yet because I don't exactly know the problem. Right. So what my proposal is to immediately call for a full financial audit of the Office of Management and Budget over the last few years to just look at funds, to your point, which were appropriated. Let's check funds that were, so let's start there. So first we'll start with appropriated funds and we'll break this down into categories. Funds which were spent, were they spent in accordance with the law and what the appropriations bill that appropriated those funds, did that go the right way? Funds which were appropriated but canceled, clawed back, doged, whatever you want to call it, where are or did those funds go? And then rescissions. When the rescission occurred, where did those funds go? Were they already sent back to the Treasury at the time that the rescission happened? Anyway, I want a full audit and trail for each of those buckets of funds, which, by the way, for me is not partisan. I believe, so in the state of Oklahoma, we have a state auditor. I know that's not the full title, so forgive me, an inspector general or something to that effect. But I believe that the federal government, clearly they would not be elected because the Constitution does not have that provision. But we should have a full auditor who is constantly auditing the federal government, the funds that we spend, where they're going, whether or not they're in accordance with law. So that's something that I want, generally speaking, and I'm not trying to limit it to any particular period of time, but let's go ahead and examine what has happened in these few years, and then ensure that that position continues on indefinitely.
Continues on for everybody.
Yes.
Good. Immigration. Immigration, depending on the party, there's too many people coming over, or that there is not enough judicial power to take care of all the appropriate measures to make citizens of those immigrants that have gone through the process. Two parts question. The other part of it is, can the process be shortened instead of having it 10 years and possibly more to make a person citizen?
Yeah, so that's part two. What was the question for part one?
Is there do you have like an idea or proposal or something that would take care of the immigration problem that supposedly is in the United States at the current time?
Well, going to question one, what I think of when I'm faced with the question of the number of people in the United States of America is I think of Ellis Island a lot. The concept that you could just arrive to the shore of the United States, get to Ellis Island. The only requirement is that you had the proper vaccinations for wherever it is that you came, and so long as you could prove that, you wrote your name in the book, shook the hand of the immigration agent, and you were a citizen of the United States of America. If we look even further back than that, which is clearly not immigration, but we had slavery. The prosperity engine of the United States of America has, from its very inception, been built by a working class of people. Unfortunately, in the history, we made them less than citizens. And unfortunately, in a very different way, we're continuing with that process. I recognize I have not answered your question. But I think about, the reason I say that is I think about under the current administration that we have the vilification and politicization of immigrants themselves.
Right.
But I am not aware of a single prosecution of an employer who allows undocumented persons to work for them, which means that we're continuing to have an exploitable class of persons in the United States of America. We punish them for being here, we punish them for working, but we do not ever punish the employer who, once again, is exploiting their labor. So my policy proposal on the front end is, well, let's go to the second question because it feeds directly into the answer to the first question. We appropriated $70-something billion to ICE in just 2025, and then there's a reconciliation bill that's attempting to put another $70-something billion into ICE, which, by the way, if you're not familiar, is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and has nothing to do with naturalization services or anything like that. But into ICE, for a grand total of somewhere in the ballpark of $140 billion, more or less, for that appropriation last year, and then to continue it for 3 more years. What that doesn't include is an appropriation to hire more immigration judges, staff for processing, expand the computer networks. We now have a deportation facility where government employees argue for deportation in every major metropolitan in the United States, but we do not also have a naturalization facility in each of those places as well. So we are here to punish and criminalize, I guess it's not a crime, but we're here to punish and deport, I suppose, those who are trying to work and live and call the greatest country in the world their home, but we're not investing in the system that will allow them to actually have their applications processed. And for most countries, we have an average wait time for citizenship of 8 to 12 years, and in places like Mexico, it's as much as 15 years. My solution is very simple. Eliminate artificial caps. If people are eligible to be here, let them be here. If they pass the citizenship test, make them citizens. We're all made better by a growing population, a larger class of workers and business owners and entrepreneurs and so much more. And I want to ultimately see a system where those who are applying for citizenship, residency, green card, asylum, refugee, whatever it is that they need from our immigration system, that they have a definitive answer within 18 months.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, from my understanding, back in the 20s, I guess, or before even then, I think that the Mexico agreement with the United States was that they would allow certain people to come over and do the work. And after they were done, then they would return back. So that open border was an agreement between Mexico and the United States. And then somewhere along the line, we lost it. It's illegal to cross the border, period. It's
not illegal. Yes, it is illegal. Forgive me. Yes, sir.
It's a misdemeanor automatically. So you're a criminal. So you need to be deported. Would you look into that to see what happened, or is that even a question?
Sure, but I think that there's a larger inquiry to be had here that's greater than just immigration in the context that you're mentioning. And the reason I say that is the United States lately seems to be guilty, there might be a better word here, but guilty of violating many treaties. So what I think of here is the McGirt and Castro Huerta decisions ruling that basically, most of eastern Oklahoma is still tribal land, that is sovereign land, and is still a congressionally sanctioned or created reservation in perpetuity for the Creek Muskogee Nation. And yet, that was ignored for decades until they had to sue, and the government not only said, no, we disagree with you, we're not going to honor that, but allowed it to go to the Supreme Court. Instead of honoring the treaty that was negotiated in good faith. We had an entire trail of tears that brought countless of our tribal friends at death and calamity and disease and illness all along the way, and we do not honor many of those agreements anymore. We have riparian rights agreements with foreign nations such as Mexico, tribes, and states that we are stomping over all the time, and that is before we get into the greater issue of treaties that the United States itself has negotiated with foreign countries. And we have withdrawn, that I know off the top of my head, without considering trade agreements, 66 treaties that the United States signed, we withdrew from in just 2025. And again, that's without considering the implications of how many trade agreements were violated through the tariffs that have been ruled unconstitutional multiple times. So, yes, I absolutely believe that we need a commission and an inquiry into the treaties that the United States has signed, which ones are still valid, which ones are we currently in violation of, which ones can we repair, rectify, things of that nature. And let's get back to actually upholding our word and being a country, perhaps for the first time, I don't know, but being a country of integrity, where if we say we're going to do it, then we actually do it regardless. And this is something that frustrates me to no end. Regardless of which administration did it, which party was in charge when it happened, because just because a Republican negotiates a treaty does not mean that the Democratic president should overturn it, or vice versa. Right. That was on behalf of the United States, and it should continue to be so.
Excellent. Okay. As a freshman congressman, where would you place education?
It's the number 3 plank of my campaign, but it's my number 1 priority. The reason it's number 3 in my campaign planks is because, unfortunately, as it ranks right now, education is a policy. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. The number 1 campaign plank that I run on is strict adherence to the Constitution. I can't believe that's something that has to be said out loud in 2025. And this isn't directed at any particular president, any particular congressperson or senator or anyone like that. We have unconstitutional things happening in this country, and I find no justification for it. Let's stick to the Constitution. Number 2 for me is that I believe that our exploding debt is the greatest long-term threat to our democracy, and we must rein that in. We must balance the budget. And if we don't do those 2 things, then it doesn't really matter what our priorities are generally. These will tank us. Once we get past the threshold issues, if you will, then public education specifically, because you mentioned education, I'm going to focus on public education, and more specifically, I'm focusing on pre-K through 12th. Right. And that's where I like to spend my time focusing, because what I want to see in this country, 2 answers here. Every child should be able to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. I think that should not be controversial. But the thing that's also missing there is I also want to ensure that in school, every child is receiving personal finance. That is just so close to my heart. And we know that the United States is a place of opportunity, and where everyone is supposed to be able to move beyond the life that their parents had and choose a life for themselves. And the only way that we can empower our children to do better than we're doing is to teach them more than we know. Yes. Let them understand that credit cards can hold you back if you use them unwisely, that student loans are non-dischargeable in bankruptcy, are with you until you die, will compound interest for life. I mean, these are things that adults know, sure, but if we're not teaching our children, then it makes no difference. And then we punish, anyway. And so the secondary point on education is I just believe that we politicize it so much. And I want us to start treating public education like an investment. It's not an expense. They are our children. They're our most valuable asset. We should be investing in them. And I believe that public dollars belong in public institutions. And so I do not support private school vouchers, Parental Choice Tax Credit Act, as it is in Oklahoma, and things like that. Our tax dollars should be ensuring that every child not only receives a public education, but receives a quality public education. And one way that we should do that is we live in the great state of Oklahoma. We're currently ranked, as far as states are concerned, dead last in education. And I think that as we look around this country and say, oh, well, we rank this, and Colorado is blank, and New Hampshire is blank, and New Jersey is also ranked blank, then we're missing the greater point, which is that the United States as a country is falling further down in the line in education globally. And I wanted us to get back to being number one in the world. That way, even if you go to school in a 50 out of 50 state, you're still receiving a world-class education.
Very well put. And a good statement, because there's very few people that really concentrate on the world. They just concentrate on possibly the state or the nation and not put it any further than that. Thank you for that. I have, I guess, a last question. I could have a million questions, but
I'm here for you.
For-profit prisons. This is a very touching question and conversation. What are your concerns, and do you feel that I guess that would be a part B, flock cameras?
So for-profit prisons, abolish them right now. So and I'm sorry, I'm pulling out my phone. I don't have the 13th Amendment memorized, and I want to say it exactly correctly. And I have a VPN on, so I cannot use the Library of Congress. So give me 1 second to get that exact language. So neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. The problem with that clause in the middle, when this was written, it says, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. Chain gangs and prison labor is involuntary servitude. Some people call it slavery, but regardless of what you choose to call it, it's allowable by that little clause between the commas in the 13th Amendment. It is my belief, though, that Americans should never be for sale, period. In that the role of the criminal justice system is rehabilitation. But we seem to focus on retribution and punishment for the crime committed. And I'm not saying that people should not be held accountable. My belief, though, is if we want to eliminate recidivism or the repeating of crime over time, then we have to give people the skills to go forth into society and be contributing members of society in prison, school to prison pipelines, and so on and so forth. But fundamentally through all of that, because I believe that it's rehabilitation, I also believe that that is fundamentally a role of government and should never be filled by for-profit industry. And to avoid loopholes like we have with those little commas in the 13th Amendment, I'll just say this more clearly. No private prisons, regardless of who is operating them. And I believe that it must always fall on the government to house, be a custodian of, take care of, rehabilitate, punish, whatever it may be, Americans itself. And so, flat out, I reject private prisons. I want to abolish them. There is a second part of the 13th Amendment that says that Congress shall have the authority to pass any appropriate legislation to enforce this, which means that there's a constitutional hook or jurisdictional hook in the 13th Amendment for Congress to just pass a bill that says there shall be no private prisons anywhere in the United States of America. It can apply to states. I think that it's long past time that we did that. You had a two-part to the question. Forgive me. What was that second part?
Flock cameras.
Ah, yes. I want them gone. I have a feeling that they will be interpreted to be constitutional. I hope they're not. I hope that they are challenged, and I hope that they are thrown out of this country because I think I'm a fairly handsome guy, but even I don't want a camera analyzing my face and tracking it every single day. Let's let the police come and see my beautiful side every day if they want to actually watch me, catch me committing a crime, or come find me after I've committed one. Police should do police work, and we should not be outsourcing that to a corporation that is not beholden to the government, has not no guardrails from Congress, does not have a law dictating what it shall or shall not do with your information, your license plate, your vehicle information, your habits, where you go every day, where you work, exactly what time you leave your house. None of those things should be available to a private company to sell to anyone that they want, anywhere in the world, any government, any organization, any entity. And I want to be very clear here, that does not mean I want the United States to take that over either. I want to amend the Fourth Amendment to eliminate and ban, prohibit the use of flock systems, automated license plate readers, facial recognition cameras for law enforcement purposes anywhere in the United States of America. I will say this, though, very briefly, because I mentioned in the United States of America. I am not willing to accept them at this time, but there is an argument to be had, I think, and I would need someone to bring it to me so that I could fully flesh this out. But to potentially have them deployed along a border wall, I could see a purpose for that. But as it stands right now, I don't like them. I want them gone. And again, I want to amend that Fourth Amendment.
All right. I think that's what I have for you.
Well, then I want to say that I thank you for, once again, allowing me into your home, allowing me to sit here with you, and asking me questions and letting me record that as we do.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.